Well, the Obama administration is being accused of paying ransom to Iran after making a $400 million cash payment. It coincided with the release of 4 American hostages back in January. CBS News Foreign Affairs correspondent Margaret Brennan is at the White House for us. Margaret, earlier we heard Press Secretary Josh Earnest insisting really that this wasn't a ransom, but it was part of the controversy that's been about the $400 million that went straight to Iran without a third party being involved. So how is the White House explaining all of this?
Well, they're vehemently denying here, as you said, that there was any ransom paid, and that this is simply new detail on an old story that they told us about back in January when the president announced $1.7 billion was going to be given to Iran to settle an old legal dispute. However, the details that $400 million of it was cash delivered directly to Iran in cash, which is untraceable in terms of how Iran then uses that money. Those are very worrisome charges, according to some congressmen who want to know that the money's traceable and exactly how it was transferred. So White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest pushed back on that, said this is all politically motivated by people who opposed a separate negotiation to halt Iran's nuclear program. The thing is what makes it very complicated for the White House to refute what they call innuendo, but what Congress calls unanswered questions, is that they are linking together 3 different tracks of negotiations. 1, a deal to release American hostages. 2, a deal to freeze Iran's nuclear program. And 3, what they claim is a totally unrelated negotiation to end a 35-year-old legal dispute. The timing of this, all coinciding and coming together at the exact moment that American hostages were handed over to the U.S. after years of captivity, does raise some eyebrows. So the administration can argue that none of this really was a ransom payment, but others would say you're just calling it what you like.
And you mentioned Congress and the fact that Congress was left out of these discussions. Why is that so significant, Margaret? Can you explain that one for us?
Well, what the White House would say is what they did was perfectly legal. $400 million of this money, it was Iranian money that was just frozen in U.S. accounts. $1.3 billion of this, however, was U.S. taxpayer money, and that was held at the Treasury in a fund that the president has discretion over. In other words, Congress doesn't have to approve how he uses it. So the fact that the president acted independently without seeking Congress's approval or even advising them of his intent to do so really rubs many congressional leaders the wrong way, particularly because they also had no say when it came to the nuclear deal that lifted congressional sanctions and executive sanctions on Iran in exchange for Iran freezing its nuclear development. So this has been in many ways a Washington power struggle, in the same way that back in Iran you are seeing a power struggle within its own leadership over who gets to call the shots here. Either way, the White House defends its actions, saying we're doing what's best for the national interest and security of this country. Congress says we need to know more about it because we don't trust some of the decisions you're making here, and question whether this truly does make the world safer if Iran is given cash and is given more money to spend, as it says it's going to, either on infrastructure or, as some suspect, perhaps on terrorism, because after all, this country is officially recognized as the largest state sponsor of terror in the world.
I guess this is just the opening salvo in this one. I'm sure it's going to continue. Our Margaret Brennan at the White House. Thank you, Margaret.